Even without knowing the prologue to this film is going to be a flashback, there's an entirely different tone to the opening notes, even if they still lead into the Rings theme. I'll just never get over the blending of different themes by Howard Shore. And again, resolving on an upbeat note at the sight of hobbits, even though it's a false sense of security this time. So is this Andy Serkis just being Andy Serkis, Smeagol enjoying the simpler things like fishing in general, or Smeagol showing signs of being a sadistic crazy person really enjoying hooking the worm? Always wondered. Any of the three are a win. And as I mentioned in Fellowship, same shot used then. A great opening that really pulls focus back to the ring since it barely came up in Two Towers. Ooh, the ring instantly ensnares Smeagol. Not making excuses, but it's interesting that it's actually Deagle who strangles Smeagol first. Though Smeagol does finish the job. Can't help but appreciate that heartbeat worked into the score, slowly petering out. And as always, a Smeagol transforming into Gollum montage is the fastest way to turn Lord of the Rings into a horror movie and Gollum into a kitty cat. Quick reminder for us that while Frodo acts tough, the ring has taken a hold of him. So like, precious shadowing.
It isn't midday yet. The days are growing darker.
The first real mention of Sauron's cloud to protect his orcs is right from Frodo in the beginning. Every scene transition, a score transition that even across hundreds or possibly thousands of miles, the leitmotif carries you over and connects all our heroes. Everything always works together. It's probably a no-brainer for the continuity department, but I love that the Misty Mountains are in the background, tying into the continuity of Saruman creating that avalanche in Fellowship.
You were deep in the enemy's council.
So you have come here for information. His attack will come soon. You are all going to die.
Another scene that totally works for the extended and answers what happened to Saruman, but really was mostly unnecessary for the theatrical. Feels like backtracking, so good call cutting it, super glad it still exists.
Grima, come down. Be free of him.
Showing the merciful side of Theoden, even to Grima, who had poisoned his mind for so long.
Kerr!
Ha! Kerr. Remember last week? I don't. Comeuppance. Also brutal, but appropriate way to kill Count Dracula. Also, this is exactly why you don't put spikes on water wheels, if you needed a reason. Our composer, Howard Shore, he definitely deserves to be seen in this one.
Kill them. Kill them. Kill them both.
Sure, when Gollum does it, it's creepy, but when Bender does it, it's funny. Double standard much? Crawling up to the water to have a conversation with Gollum where they just used camera cuts on either side of the tree to dissociate last time. Gollum and Smeagol even have different pupil dilations.
Whole of a took.
Ugh, the line he so casually said before, immediately dismissed when he realizes that Pippin is in actual danger.
You smoke too much, Pippin.
Health advice. Oh, Hope and Memory. What a piece of music!
Since before we were tweens.
Wait, tweens? Lord of the Rings invented tweens?
We cannot delay.
Figwit, play her song to keep her going. Really building up the splendor that is Minas Tirith by constantly cutting to these panning wides and not rushing the ascent.
To give him news of his beloved son's death would be most unwise. And do not mention Frodo or the ring. And say nothing of Aragorn either. In fact, it's better if you don't speak at all about Begin too.
Discretion advice. Subtle touch you may not notice is that there is a higher throne above Denethor that's for the king, while he sits in the steward's chair.
The rule of Gondor is mine!
Let's talk about Dr. Walter Bishop here for a second. Peter Jackson talks a lot about how John Noble has a background as a stage actor, and man was he the right cast for this movie. Conveying insanity and then powerful rage, but he's also hunched over, showing the broken down man that he truly is. I totally get why this is cut. Gandalf is literally waxing philosophical about a city, but the sweeping pans are still gorgeous.
We're going there and back again.
Encouragement in the form of book titles. Yeah, smoking is bad for you, especially when you trade your old gray lungs in for new white ones.
There never was much hope. Just a fool's hope.
Honesty with a side of optimism. I don't have anything left witty to say. There's Peter Jackson again. I give him credit for the amount of makeup this time. Gotta love the way the camera falls all over itself, letting us inside Frodo's mind as he's being pulled to Minas Morgul. Such a great way of tying our characters together who have been apart for so long by witnessing the same crazy event. And speaking of camera movements, how about that pan down? There are a few things I love about the beacon lighting scene. First is thinking about the guys whose job it is to just hang out and wait to see a fire from either side. Sounds like a boring, albeit potentially exhilarating job, but more importantly is the visuals we get. That brief moment of trying to find the stack of wood on the horizon before the fire is actually lit, having your eyes fixed on one and not noticing the other until it lights up the sky. The crazy long shots as we follow the beacon through the night across Middle-earth. And obviously, Howard Shore's score pretty much makes you want to stand up and salute Gondor. Or, well, Pippin, I guess. Ooh, that's a little teamwork. Brutal. Grabbed by Nazgul dragon talons and thrown into stone walls? There's a fun little characterization of Gothmog where he's super insecure about his malformities. Madril glances at his hand, prompting him to stab a dying, immobilized man out of spite to look tough. Spoke too soon on the brutal. Gandalf to the rescue again. Ooh, and these choral voices coinciding with his beam of light breaking through the chaos and noise around the Nazgul attack. Okay, that's insane, and I never really considered this before, but they've been climbing for quite a while. 20 minutes in film time. I think they stopped for the night on this cliff, though they may be higher, but either way, the orc army is still marching out. Gives you a pretty solid idea of how large it is.
You will ask you for it. The fat one will take it from you.
Clairvoyance, and I hate to praise masterful manipulation, but masterful manipulation from Gollum. Not that poisoned mind Frodo is a tough target.
You wish now that our places had been exchanged, that I had died and Boromir had lived.
Yes, I wish that.
Can you even imagine? I actually can't.
Since you were robbed of Boromir, I will do what I can in his stead. If I should return, think better of me, Father.
But David Wenham creates a moment here caught somewhere between complete despair and betrayal and trying to win his father's love. Also, holy cow, Faramir is Harold Meacham. That's just like the creepiest. Of all the jump scare, eye-opening scenes in horror movies, Gollum knowing that Sam was waiting for him to be asleep and having some sixth sense about it? Another few things. Just the fact that the climb is so long that they have to sleep on the mountain, such a powerful image. Fortunately, hobbits don't roll in their sleep at all, and another awesome pan-down shot. Every shot from up on the stairs is just breathtaking.
And also sneak! Sneak!
What were you doing?
Sneak.
Honesty.
You can't help me anymore. Go home.
That'll crush your soul. The one person who's always been there, completely destroyed because Gollum knows exactly how to exploit the power of the ring.
Loud and shame.
Rough couple of scenes here. The double juxtaposition of Pippin's angelic yet melancholy voice against Faramir riding to his death mirrored in Denethor's gluttonous, bone-breaking, and purposefully sloppy eating. You don't need to see the actual battle, cause... Wow, I totally thought that was a shot at it for the extended, but apparently just slightly enhanced. The Ghost King was in there for the theatrical.
They will answer to the King of Gondor.
Hugo Weaving gets just a sliver of screen time and shows why he's always a win. Generosity, and what a triumphant score to compliment it. Also, I know I said the books are different works of art, but holding on to this scene until now gives the sword and Aragorn's destiny to be king a lot more poignancy this far in.
It is but a shadow and a thought that you love.
That's like the gentlest "it's me not you" letdown ever. Good on you, Aragorn. Any woman is going to be devastated no matter the cause. Just the idea that the giant trolls are most valuable at this point banging drums because of how powerful the terror they're instilling in Gondor would be. I'd say pairing a ghost sword with your newly formed Dark Lord killing sword classifies as a badass good guy thing to do. What say you? Seems like a foregone conclusion, but if you really think about it, they do actually have a choice. Kill these three and keep on living the way they live, or fight for them. I like that it's not like they're compelled to fight for Aragorn just because of his blood and the sword. How did the skull avalanche not make it into the final cut?
We fight.
Barbossa was always a man of his word, but this is another scene I'm glad was left on the cutting room floor for the theatrical. It's fine once you've seen the movie, but the tension when Aragorn enters the battle later is diminished. Second moment of Gothmog trying to look cool and being embarrassed when he stumbles. My point is that he could have just been another Lurtz. It's the same actor after all, but he's unique. Man, that pan up. So perfect. Since we know that Denethor hasn't been even remotely paying attention as tens of thousands of orcs formed outside his walls. The tension building up before this battle is similar to Helm's Deep in outcome, I guess, but it's completely different in tone, style, and execution. Denethor hasn't prepared anyone, civilians are still in the streets when the rocks start flying, the soldiers look completely lost until Gandalf takes control. Yep, also comeuppance. Timing? Win? Also, setting this battle in daytime sets it apart from Helm's Deep, as well as trebuchets and catapults and Nazgul flying around killing dudes. You can say one thing for the orcs, they always have some great siege plans. Saving a fool of a toque.
This is no place for a hobbit!
It is, however, clearly a place for a wizard. Badass good guy over here, too. Doug's dead.
What is this place?
We call it the Dolly Zoom Cave. This is already getting pretty nopey, but it really hasn't gotten there yet. Yeah, nope.
What only round serve
And here I thought Gollum was great with songs. Kate Blanchett is always a win, even when she's just a helpful hallucination.
Better to die sooner than late, for die we must.
Denethor is a really annoying sad sack, but he's also a great contrast and setup for the hope that's coming.
No matter what comes through that gate, you will stand your ground!
Whoops, never mind, it's trolls in armor. Bail, everyone, we're gonna bail. Man, I love Gandalf in this movie. The leader, the warrior, the only one in white. Did I mention nope? Still a solid nope, but I can't help but love the low-angle camera torturing us. Never thought I'd use this one, but skip. Yeah, still a nope, but loving the way Shelob pulls those, whatever they are, I'm not looking it up, like a boxer who just took one on the chin.
It's my power.
Flaming sword! Another spot where I've got to give it to theatrical. The flow is just much better. I don't care about the impact on the Witch King, I care about Gondor. You've got Gandalf telling them,
Fight! Fight to the last man! Fight for your life!
and then instead of a silly ex machina save of Gandalf, the Rohan horn silences the battle.
A sword day! A red day! And the sun rises!
Well, that beats his woe is me speech before Helm's Deep, ironically when the odds are even worse. Straight up courage. I mean, it's a little morbid, but still courageous. The Battle of Pelennor Fields. 6,000 horses is a sight to see, but this moment, their absolute sacrificial attitude as they charge in, literally chanting death, almost ironically underselling how insanely impactful 6,000 horses charging through stationary orcs will actually be, and the Ride of the Rohirrim theme. Oh man, does it all tie together and make for one of the most triumphant moments in the film. Those horns and strings. Again, the comparison to Helm's Deep can't be ignored, but what a totally different aesthetic and feeling of finality to this battle. Brutal and awesome. Guys, we doing this? Are we really doing this? Come up and sir, come down and can't even imagine running like half a mile on fire. But also you up for the visuals. Oof, that look on Theoden's face. I love that they were so briefly introduced in Two Towers, so you get the feeling that maybe that's what's coming. Everything about this insanity is brutal, but still so entertaining. Yep. Badass good girl.
No man can kill me.
I am no man.
Badass no man. And a little more brutal crushing inside your own helmet. Just another dead orc and he's moving on. One last theatrical superiority. Listen to this score as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli advance on the field. It's like the full culmination of the Fellowship theme, as powerful as can be. Willifont? Alright, as cheesy as this entire sequence is, and don't get me wrong, I still love it. Legolas the Super Elf is always fun to watch, and no, it's not like he could just do this to every single one. Or he could, and it doesn't matter since they have Ghost Army now anyway. But you've got to admit that that's some resourcefulness. Cutting the ropes of the... Is this still considered a howdah? Whatever it is, cutting it free and riding it up to the top. Right, so those are the good guys swarming that thing, right? Gotta give Eowyn some credit for holding back her tears until after Theoden dies, allowing him his redemption moment. So the implication is that they slaughtered each other just because the ring was in close proximity? Wait, but Sam actually had it. So it's just a statement about evil groups not being able to get along? I'm good with that. I guess that's why Sauron creates hundreds of thousands of them.
That's for Frodo! That's for the Shire! That's for my old Gandalf!
Samwise the Brave. First real look at Frodo's neck and impact of the increasing weight of the ring. I love that while it does seem like Frodo wants the ring back for his own purposes, a fix if you will, once he gets it he reveals that it's also to protect Sam from what he's going through.
It will destroy you, Sam.
Gimli just casually sitting in the steward's chair. I mean, it's so simple. Of course Rohan and Gondor should be united.
Hit me! Hit me, Sam! Start fighting!
Get off of me!
I guess sometimes the answer is violence?
Sauron the Great bids thee welcome.
Smiling? Yeah, smiling.
Silence.
No!
The poor gyro captain from Road Warrior didn't make the final cut, but you gotta give it up to Bruce Spence's performance, especially the creepy smile breaks.
I bid you stand! Men of the West!
Encouragement. Man, this battle speech is good. Sets up the craziness of the finale with everyone willing to sacrifice their lives for, well, most of them probably don't even know what for. Actually physically dragging themselves. Days without food, who knows how long without water. Any normal person would be exhausted from the journey and trauma itself, but then there's also a literal evil weight around Frodo's neck, cutting into his skin and pulling him to the ground.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
Friendship.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you!
Samwise Gamgee is always a win.
For Frodo.
No charge, no battle cry, just a tearful declaration of motivation, and one that Aragorn may or may not actually believe is justified anymore. They have his mithril shirt, but ultimately it doesn't matter. For Frodo works if he's alive, plan A all the way. But if he's dead, for Frodo still works. Mankind is screwed anyway. Let's give it one last try so that Frodo's efforts weren't in vain. So powerful. Not to mention the hobbits being second to charge.
Eagle promised!
Smeagol lied.
Ooh, that's good. Thinking it was Gollum behind every evil deed, but really Smeagol was playing along so that he could take the ring for himself. Hinted at with this opening again when he says himself, and now nailed home. Yeah, better late than never, you noble race of birds that were probably really busy throughout these films. There are a couple reasons I hate but also love that Frodo finally gives in to temptation here. The first is a solid explanation as to why Sauron did nothing to prevent the ring from being destroyed, such as, I don't know, throw a few tens of thousands of orcs right outside the entrance to Mount Doom. He never considered anyone would want to destroy it. He assumed they tried to use it against him. And the others along the same lines, but I almost get the feeling that the call of the ring is so powerful that there may not actually be anyone that can consciously destroy the ring. It took an accident. Isildur may have even cursed it in that way with his "my bloodline will be bound to its fate and I'll risk no harm to it." Granted, hobbits wouldn't be in his bloodline, but I think you get the point. A dude who witnessed the evil firsthand bound his future generations of offspring to it, so it's got some pull. As Elrond would say, it was inevitable. And that look. I think it ties back into Two Towers when Sam doesn't even believe Frodo is capable of being taken. I honestly don't even know if he'd even try to stop Frodo at this point, and I sort of like that it isn't addressed. This would break him. Well, now, there's a shot, zooming out and away through the ring. I feel like we barely ever see Legolas emotional at all, so his fight to try to save Aragorn is gut-wrenching. Such a terrible but beautiful moment where nothing else matters to Gollum, even as he dies trying to save the ring from the lava. Book readers know it goes a little differently, but I sort of like that Smeagol swore on the ring, broke the oath when he attacked Frodo, and in the ring bringing him to justice, I guess you could call it, destroyed itself in the process. Kind of like when you give a robot a paradox and it destroys itself. But the most important part of this is that Frodo technically never let go of the ring, so while the ring is destroyed, he's still not free of it. That troll knows something we don't know. What a closing to so many things at once. Sauron dead, all the orcs falling into the ground, and then immediately the volcano explodes and everyone thinks Frodo and Sam are dead. But yep, to Sauron dying. Now you can see the full bloody mess that Frodo's neck became after carrying such a weight for so long. Such a great touch.
It's gone.
What a great delivery. Both relief and extreme sadness. The multiple endings get talked about a lot, so here's my take. Ending 1 is for the ring. Its story is over. Love that you can just make out the eagles when we fade back in. Can't argue with a heartfelt reunion. Ending 2 is the end of the Fellowship, even though Gandalf technically says it later. This is the place it was formed, now the remaining members gather after the task is complete. Finally, with a proper beautiful beard. Love.
You bow to no one.
Well, that'll get you in the back of the throat. Oh, am I kidding? I pretty much weep every time. Finally getting the recognition they deserve, even if Frodo doesn't really know what to do with it. Ending 3 is sort of the Middle Earth and the World of Men ending. They have leadership again, the white tree is flowering, it's something that was set up in the beginning, now closing out.
We were home.
And thankfully it was not scoured. Oh, it's the same, but they're not the same. This feeling that you can fight for everything that matters, even to you personally, and never really be able to go back to it because of the fight.
I'm afraid I lost it.
Pity. Should like to have held it one last time.
It was pity that kicked the entire thing off, and like Gandalf said, Gollum's role can't be understated.
Do not sad, do not weep. For not all tears are an evil.
I'm not weeping. Hugging. Ending 4 is Frodo's ending. Like I pointed out, he didn't destroy the ring. He never really let go of it because he can't. You could probably say that none of the ring bearers can, which is why they're going to the Undying Lands, but a final smile from Frodo seals it. And the final ending is, well, the final ending. The movie's over, the story's over. Goodbye. Also, that's Sean Astin's real daughter.
You've come to Journey's End.
Man, this is Annie Lennox, as in Eurythmics Annie Lennox singing this final song. Let me start by saying that I'm really glad the extended editions do exist now that I've really gone into them, even if I was hard on them in the main section. The extra detail makes the whole story more immersive once you've seen the movies. I will stick to recommending first-time viewing with the theatrical, but that's just my preference. But honestly, thank you guys for encouraging me to do the extended editions. So, interestingly, the main theme in Return of the King, really a theme throughout the entire trilogy, but solidified here, is hope. More specifically, hope's absence, like doubt and fear and despair. Even someone who always seemed to have hope admits that it's only ever been
Just a fool's hope.
The strongest weapon Sauron uses in this film is fear. Comes up a bunch, from the beacon that actually makes Gandalf take a step back. Sauron's commander sends Faramir's men's heads back in only to instill fear. Even the battering ram is created to be menacing, and the chants of Gron make the Gondor soldiers nervous. They want them to despair and flee and die. Even the mouth of Sauron seems to have one goal in mind: discourage them, make them believe they're beaten one last time before battle. But someone still has hope. Otherwise, everyone is pretty much at their lowest in this film. It's honestly a little disheartening to see Sam and Gandalf, who were always the pillars of optimism, hit the bottom. Fortunately for both of them, Denethor and Frodo, respectively, hit a lower rock bottom, so they have to rise to the occasion. The other obvious message or motif running throughout is about the fight between good and evil, and how the ring is sort of like a stand-in for power. Sauron created it to control people, and when he uses it, he's all-powerful. But the interesting thing about the ring is that the more powerful good people in Middle-earth don't want anything to do with the ring, and when mortals use it, they eventually succumb to the power of the ring rather than being able to wield it. I see it as a pretty straightforward metaphor for power itself, in that power corrupts. Tolkien goes so far as to say you can't use evil/power to defeat evil/power. The only thing that can defeat evil is love and friendship. And that's where my boy Sam comes in. Sam, oh Sam. Frodo and Sam actually do a little switcheroo through the course of this film. We open with Sam still concerned with rationing food for the journey home, whereas Frodo has pretty much been planning on dying probably since leaving the Fellowship at the end of the first film. But Sam has always been optimistic, or at the very least, something I've come to consider after seeing these movies multiple times, playing the optimist. The discussion of the journey home comes up again when they're at the foot of Mount Doom drinking water when Frodo is now concerned with rationing. Potentially because Sam's optimistic facade worked on him, and now that they're this close, Sam drops the smile and says what he really thinks.
I don't think there will be a return journey, Mr. Frodo.
And if Sam had always truly been concerned with going home, which I'm not totally discounting, in that moment he lets go and almost hops on the despair wagon with Frodo so they can finish their mission regardless of the outcome. Sam is the hero of the story in a lot of ways. Not least of all in almost literally carrying Frodo and the ring across the finish line. But on 2 occasions, with a little luck, he enters into 2 unbeatable situations.
Let him go, you filth.
First with Shelob, where he's disarmed multiple times, and then again when he enters the orc camp and through pure force of will kills 4 orcs and saves Frodo. All while carrying the ring, I might add. He's the hidden in plain sight hero. And yes, there's no denying the ring took the biggest toll on Frodo, but he could not have done it without Sam. I love the character, I love Sean Astin. He shines in this film. From how broken he is when Frodo sends him away to this last push where he finds a loophole in the rules of being a ring bearer. He'll always be my favorite. Then we have Gandalf, who, as I mentioned, had to step up when it was clear not only was Denethor going to be useless, he was also going to be detrimental to the cause. And seeing him step up and take charge is a great showcase of his age and knowledge. He's been here before, he just didn't realize he'd have to run the show again. It's one of the most satisfying things that happens for his character. You know, other than fighting a fire demon while falling down a bottomless pit. And Ian McKellen never so much as stumbled in his portrayal throughout the entire trilogy. He's also my favorite, 2 favorites. Then you have another way of experiencing despair shown through Theoden and the Riders of Rohan, who embraced it and fully planned to die when charging into battle. Both battles contain speeches that break the norm of, we can do this, we can win, instead opting for, we have to do this because it's right and we're pretty assuredly going to die. That's some powerful stuff. You know me. Self-sacrifice always moves me, and the last half of this movie is just one after the other. From 6,000 men on horses to 1 hobbit approaching insurmountable odds to a group of outmatched, outnumbered, surrounded, walking dead men, all because someone has to stand up to evil no matter the cost. This look from Vigo cuts right through it all. Something about a man looking his death in the face, yet still charging into it while his concern is for another who he's not afraid to show emotion for. That's a lot of qualifiers, but it's something that Tolkien's writing and Peter Jackson's interpretation contain a lot of. Back to love and friendship, but more specifically, men having loving relationships and not being afraid to express their feelings for each other. Even two polar opposites let the other know how much they care for each other before the end. It's kind of beautiful, and a big part of why it works is obviously the writing, but the performances are some of the best in the trilogy. Everyone is just constantly reacting and emoting to everything going on, and I'm always right there with them. It would be quicker to name those who aren't impressive in this film, so I'll just do that. This guy, I would have liked to see a little more out of him. Every single other actor is amazing. Actually, I take it back, he's great too. And that's kind of the point of these movies. I often read people argue about whether Sam or Frodo is the true hero, and I think that's missing the bigger picture. To me, every member of the Fellowship is the hero, and each is the main character. It's weird to say because the Fellowship breaks so quickly, but each member still serves their purpose, right on down to Boromir. Without Boromir's death and the splitting of the Fellowship, Sam and Frodo probably wouldn't have come into contact with Gollum and been shown the back way into Mordor. Then, once they're there, without the rest of the Fellowship being willing to lay down their lives, Sam and Frodo would have never escaped Sauron's eye to get into Mount Doom. It's probably obvious because it's like the plot, but my point is that you can barely elevate one member of the Fellowship over another. Though, if you know anything about Tolkien, I'm sure you know his religious background. There are some biblical parallels throughout. Only one character gives up his life and is then resurrected. Here's a true king changing the tide of a war, but the one I find the most compelling, again, sacrifice, is Frodo. Frodo carries the Ring of Power to its destruction in order to save Middle-earth, but in a more acute sense, the Shire. It's sort of how he keeps going. And when they finally succeed, it's the first thing he and Sam talk about. But when he gets back, he realizes that he wasn't actually able to save it for himself. So in sacrificing himself to save something, he lost the thing he was saving and had to move on to heaven. I just think it's sort of tragically beautiful. Speaking of tragically beautiful, I've already talked about the score a lot, so I won't go nuts, but Howard Shore's name just needs to be uttered one last time. Every leitmotif that ties into the next, every building moment, every stop that was pulled for this film. The Rohirrim charge is a special moment, and so is this quiet moment between Frodo and Sam with just a flute or a whistle in the background. It is genuinely one of the best scores of all time. I've also gone through the amazing work of Weta Digital and the CGI of the Nazgul and Gollum and Weta Workshop, thank you commenter for the correction last time, on miniatures and sets and costumes and how everything is always real. The super wide sweeping shots, every moment gives you just enough time so you can appreciate the magnificence but not so much that you feel like it's scenery worship. Also, the cinematography needs to be praised separately in this film. There are so many interesting camera movements that always make you feel something, whether it's terror or splendor or just awe. Seriously, you probably noticed how many times I say the word pan in these videos. I don't recommend making a drinking game out of it. I mean, the crane and camera operators themselves need a pat on the back. It's special above and beyond even the other two films. DP Andrew Lesnie stepped it up for this one. So on the list of things you guys all agree were wins that I totally agree with but was trying to keep it at a manageable length after the monstrosity that was The Last Jedi are... This moment where Theoden regains control of the riders to attack the Oliphants, showing no fear. Gandalf taking charge riding through the streets, telling soldiers to get back to their posts after Denethor loses it. Pippin saving Gandalf, Merry saving Éowyn, the sound design of the Nazgul. More wins for this speech, the moment Aragorn comes off the ship with Ghost Army. Sam coming back to save Frodo twice. Well, technically I covered that one. More wins for the Battle of Pelennor Fields. More wins for this moment of honoring the real heroes, even though it was in this video. More wins for the initial attack on Minas Tirith, specifically the swooping shot of the Nazgul and the tiny people fleeing. Christopher Lee's real-life backstory as a war hero and how he had to coach Jackson on what happens when people get stabbed in the back, since he'd seen people get stabbed in the back. And Rohan will answer. And there's more, but you get it. Most everything that happens in this film is a win. There's a lot of emotion in this film, so much so that it's hard to digest it all in one sitting. This trilogy will go down as one of the best of all time. And even I learned something through this process. I was a theatrical version purist before I dove into these, and now I totally see the extended's merit. Depending on how much time you have, you can enjoy both. I plan to switch back and forth. So that's The Lord of the Rings. I mentioned in a previous video that Mortal Engines was my reasoning for doing this because of Jackson's involvement. Apparently it's not faring so well so far. I guess we'll just have to be the judges of that.